Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and we have with us today Stephanie Mendoza. She is running for City Clerk. Stephanie, that is a very big role, a very big role in this city.
Yes, definitely it is.
Yes. So you you're wanting to fill, well, not, I shouldn't say fill the shoes because you want to create your own shoes, but our current city clerk Devon Reid, I mean, he came in like gangbuster. Okay.
Mhm.
He definitely educated the public about FOIA. I'm be honest, so many people didn't know what FOIA was until
Right.
Devon Reid. They did not know what the heck a FOIA was. um, he got more people out to the polls, educating them on all the different elections, local elections going on. Um, my goodness, he did quite a bit in his term. So, but you also saw a lot of the heat that he took as well, because Devon was very knowledgeable about the rules, especially at the city council meeting. So you
Mhm.
would see some aldermen not violating the rules or not following the correct process or protocol to certain things. So girl, are you ready? For it just seems like you got to be like on point 24/7 being a city clerk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely ready. Definitely me and Devon, I'm gonna say we're different people. I'm not gonna pretend and say here like I'm gonna, be Devon. Definitely admire a lot about just his strength and forwardness. And I think it's important, right? Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing if you don't know what you're doing wrong. So it is, I think it's important when people are honest and are able to tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. But for me, I've worked as a community organizer, community advocate. I've worked in many different nonprofits. I've also been a volunteer for a few nonprofits here in Evanston, and have worked in community outreach. And for me, that's my goal, is bringing back a renewed focus of community to the clerk's office. I think Devon has set up a good groundwork to be able to do that. Now that people understand what the clerk's office is there for, I believe we have more people who are educated about how to FOIA, how to be hold our government accountable. Now we just need people to do it, right? We need the people to hold, people accountable, people to, participate in our local government, people who are interested and maybe in the future running for office, being part of the different committees. So, we need regular, Evanstonians, coming in and telling us which direction our city should be going. And I do want to be that nonpartisan elected official who is there to facilitate, open and honest government, who's there to facilitate participation, and opens the door, to welcome um, people into the city that have probably in the past have felt like they are not welcomed. So whether it's language barriers, whether it's, there just haven't been reached out before historically, or just, historically, we do have a lot of issues with people who have not been invited, who have lived here for generations and have not been invited to participate in our local government. So my hope is to bring all those people in the door, and you wouldn't, with new leadership, make sure that the city is working for them, right? So they can stay here. We have people who have been pushed out of Evanston who have been here for generations. And I think sometimes we don't work in their best interest. And, that's what I hope to push, is more participation.
Yes, we do need that there. In the interviews that I've given so far with the candidates, I've brought that up to just about all of them about the gap between the city and the residents and
Yeah.
how everyone intends to close that gap. Um,
Yeah.
so for the city clerk's office, my questioning is a little different than for the aldermanic candidates and the mayoral candidates.
Mhm.
So um, going back to Devon Reid's efforts, the current city clerk, um, with FOIA and the judicial review for body cam footage release, financial records at the city. How do you intend to build upon that? Because I know he received a lot of pushback
Mhm.
get those body cams released. He received pushback with getting certain records, financial records,
Mhm.
which should, the public should have access to all of this
No,
information.
definitely.
So, how do you intend to fight that system that is
Mm.
allegedly in place to keep people from seeing
Yeah.
certain information?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Devon has faced a lot of pushback, and I think has really, you know, kind of impeded him to do some of the things that he's wanted to do. And a lot of that has to do with, our leadership. We will have hopefully new council members. We will have a new mayor. For sure, we'll have a new mayor. And I think it is important for whoever is elected, whether it's people who are already there, or new people, is that they work hand in hand with the clerk, in making sure that that we are trusted, making sure that people trust us and the direction that the city council wants to go in, and also understands that the clerk is an elected position. The clerk is put there by Evanstonians because they want someone to be to listen to them and what they need and what they asked. And, part of that is, as clerk, you are the FOIA officer for the city. And, we are there and we are held accountable by Evanstonians, by our, people who elected us into office. And I think that's a role that city council has to understand. And hopefully with new leadership, it will be easier to do some of that work. I give Devon a lot of credit for trying to push those things, but at the same time, unfortunately, he's also faced a lot of barriers, and it's hard for anyone to be able to do their job if there's constant barriers that they have to cross. Um, and I really hope that the council and our new mayor sees the clerk's office as a partner, right? Like they see the clerk as a person who is there, who's held accountable by our citizens. And we are just facilitating communication between Evanstonians and the clerk. We're just a facilitator between them and city council. So I really do hope, my hope is to build bridges and partnerships, but at the same time, if that's not possible, at the end of the day, I am there. And if hopefully elected, I will be there. And I will be accountable to the people that put me there. um, so
Well, Stephanie, I mean, it sounds like, and just based off of your work in the community, it sounds like you would be a fighter for the people. So,
yeah.
say you're up against certain individuals at the city who don't want certain information to be leaked out to the public. So, you as the city clerk, you've received this FOIA request from residents, and they have the right to that information, but then certain individuals at the city will redact that information, black it out, and then really there's no information being given back to the residents who requested this because all the important information is
Yeah.
blacked out. How will you handle that for the people? You're that
you know
liaison. So how would you handle?
mhm.
I mean, are you going to protect the city, or are you going to look out for the rights of the residents? And then how do you be that person without coming off like people have painted Devon to be?
Yeah. Well, the clerk's job, you're a liaison, right? You're a liaison between the city and the residents. And my hope is, like I said, to build partnerships and, build bridges. That's what I'm coming in with, right? That's the mentality that I'm going to come in with. Hopefully, me being super optimistic and the optimistic person that I am, things will end up that way because it is just in everyone's interest, right? But if it's not, it is my job to push back as much as I can and also work with, the mayor and the council, like I said, to help them understand that this is an elected position, that I am there. I will be held accountable. And I'm there to look after the best interest of the people who live here. Because ultimately those are the people that keep us employed, all of us, and elected. So I will do my best to push back. And I know that with some of the, powers that have been kind of, you could say, take it or shift it away from Devon, it's hard sometimes for him to push back, right? Back you. Sometimes there's roadblocks, but I will do my best to, if I cannot fulfill a FOIA request, do my best to help whoever asked for it understand why that FOIA request is not being given to them. Um, and, I understand liability for the city and privacy is a concern. But under FOIA, there are certain, records and things that you are allowed to release. And obviously there is a difference, right? There's information that has to be private, that should stay private. But if it's nothing around those issues, then I think the city should always do its best effort to be transparent and give people the information they are requesting.
Yes, transparency is very, very important in the city clerk
It is, yeah,
office.
it
Yes.
is.
So, so FOIA response time has increased from 11 days to 17 days. I know I've put in a, a couple of FOIA requests, and um, I mean, the information got back to me very quickly.
Mhm.
Um, and then they added more FOIA officers, so you would think the time would even be quicker with more
Yeah.
officers handling the FOIA request, but it actually increased from 11 to 17 days to respond. Um, so should the city, do you believe the city should have additional FOIA officers as opposed to what it originally?
Well, it's hard because, like I said earlier, a lot of those kind of responsibilities have been, although the clerk is the, FOIA officer for the city, a lot of those staff have been, shifted and are under the direction of other departments. So that, it's important to understand that sometimes, the clerk can do as much as, in, Devon's, you could say, to his, unfortunately, like there's only so much he could do because there's only so much power he has. And, even his deputy clerk is not under his direction. So yeah, like I do think those should be faster. I do know that, FOIA requests have increased dramatically. And I think a lot of that thanks to Devon's, education and the accessibility he has provided, and teaching people, being available to teach people how to do it and how to request information from the city. So I to his, could say, defense, again, it's, a lot of these things he doesn't have any control over. But my hope is that with new leadership, that's something that we can talk about in the future.
Um, so you think, so you're saying that you are in agreement that there should have been additional FOIA officers, or do you think that should have remained in the city clerk's office with Devon? And because when I had put in my request, it was Devon. They didn't have the additionals yet, and I got
Mhm.
it very quickly. But I've heard it slowed down
Yeah.
considerably since they added the extra FOIA officers. And then Eddie, the deputy city clerk, was at one time working with Devon, but then he started working with the city manager's office. And I mean, it just gets very, very confusing, especially with the hearings that have just been happening with
Yeah.
those that were running for different offices for this upcoming Evanston election. And so a stapler wasn't in the office is Devon's fault. Um, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, wait, what? So who reports to Devon? Who doesn't? I know he was stripped of a lot of
Yeah.
power. And then they want to say, well, no, that was your responsibility. But no, you told him that was no longer his responsibility. So, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on? I mean, how do you feel about additional FOIA officers when it hasn't really helped, when it was actually moving fast?
Well, the thing is, right, if we're spending money, I think that we're at a point as a city where we need to look where our money is going, right? And what we're getting for it. Um, I don't think that new FOIA officers are needed if it's going to take away from another service that is also needed, right? The reality is if we've added FOIA officers and the requests are still taking too long for people, then there may need to be maybe other things are going on. Maybe we need additional training, or we need to make sure that the right people are getting the information, and also ask those people, why is it taking this long? Do those people have other responsibilities as well? So I don't see a point in adding more FOIA officers if we've already added them and then things are still, things are still taking a long time. That does not seem like a good investment. Um, and at the same time, it's hard as a clerk's office if you're there to fulfill certain duties, but then you don't have any staff, or staff that are there to facilitate that. Then it's hard for you to do your job, right? So I'm a person that has, I had two jobs. I have three children. I volunteer different places. I can get a lot of work done. I'm a hard worker. I tell people they see me in one place and then another. I'm like, I'm everywhere, nowhere at the same time. Because I do a lot, but we are all human, and you can only expect so much from people, right? When they don't have anyone to direct. So yeah, with the hearings too, it's hard. And I think we've seen the results of that.
What would what are your plans for accepting nominations if you're appointed city clerk? What are your plans for it? Because that was like, and I watched those hearings and I was like, what?
I know. Well, some things are simple, right? If you're there and you're there to accept papers, you simply accept them, and then hello and goodbye, maybe, and that's it, right? You're not supposed to make conversation with candidates. You're not supposed to direct candidates in any way. They are there to follow. The manual candidates guide is available online. Hopefully, if we're at a place where later on the clerk's office is open, happy to print it for them. But the clerk's office is not there to provide counsel, unfortunately. And it's not a fair system in any way. And hopefully, as a clerk, I can help create partnerships, right, to facilitate people's ability to run for office. But it is as you saw with the hearings, it's a hard position to be in, if you provide counsel, right, as the deputy clerk did, and then people are thrown off the ballot or then taken to a hearing. They have high lawyer cost, high lawyer fees that they need to put up because they were given the wrong instruction. So then that's another layer that as clerk you don't want to, you know
Mhm.
I wouldn't want anyone in for any way to have to spend money for something that should be free, for anyone to do. um but as clerk, I can definitely provide partnerships. We have so many amazing programs in Evanston. We have the Public Service Challenge from the Evanston Community Foundation that we can more than partner with them to make sure, people have an avenue to sign up to be a part of that, and know when the different trainings are going to be. We have many, we have organizations who may be willing to give us a list of counsel, people, lawyers that would be willing to help people file or make sure their paperwork is in order. There's a lot of things that can happen to kind of build paths for people to be able to submit the paperwork correctly. It is hard. It's not easy. I don't know if I know you've done a lot of advocacy around legislation, and and it is hard. It's hard to read any of those documents. They're hard to read for many reasons. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be one. And I think, but it is important to give people an avenue or a road to be able to run for office, or know if they're submitting their paperwork correctly, if they want to run for office.
And what are your plans to get the word out, information just on elections period out to the community?
Yeah, so I am very passionate about community. I came to Evanston in 2010, and from the moment I stepped foot here, I started volunteering. I volunteered at Child Care Network of Evanston. I was at Family Focus volunteering as well for some of their programs. And for me, it's not that hard to find people. You just have to go where people are. As a clerk's office, my hope is to go to the different community events, reach out to, people in our community who are leaders as well, and see what events they are going to, if they're hosting any, for us to just set up a table, bring out information. Also to our, communities of worship, making sure that maybe once, twice a year, as much as we can, as much as it's possible, come out and give people information. Or maybe see if we could be invited to one of their events. One of the nice things about being a nonpartisan candidate, and being nonpartisan, is that you can join these different spaces and give out information without the fear of other things, you could say. And it's just simple, reach out to people in the community, make sure we can set up a table, not very intrusive, just give out information if people are willing, do it. And also creating partnerships with organizations, with nonprofits, and making sure people know we're there and what we're there for. And make sure people understand that the clerk's office is there to serve them, and there to facilitate whatever they need to do. And I think some of it is having, being able to live in Evanston and have an opinion, right? So that this city is livable for everyone.
What are your thoughts on the Meeting Act? Should the city clerk take on that role?
Well, definitely. Like part of the city clerk's job is to make sure that people know there are meetings, and provide notice, right? Make sure people attend meetings and are aware that something is going on, and whether it's something, an emergency meeting, or whether it's just a regular city council meeting. People deserve to know what's going on. They are taxpayers, where it's not a private organization where things are happening and no one, their secrets, that's just not the way to build community.
Well,
If
what do you think constitutes an emergency meeting?
um Well, I know what doesn't constitute an emergency. If we've already, I know one of the emergency meetings when we had earlier, 4 years ago, regarding the minimum wage increase. Like for me, that could be subject to, depends, that for me was not an emergency meeting. It's something that had been decided, and to increase the minimum wage here in Evanston. And there was time to provide input. But an emergency meeting, I don't know, I can't off the top of my head create, a scenario, but definitely, if it can wait, it can wait, right? Like I just think that it's always important to be able to have people attend meetings and provide proper notice to Evanstonians, so we can have their input. Like I said before, it's hard to build trust and be transparent if people feel that things are being done maliciously or things are being done for for some just bad reason. It's hard to build trust, even if it's not right, because I don't think most of us go throughout life thinking maliciously. I don't really think people are like that, but
You don't think people are like that stuff? You turn into it.
hopefully not, right? Hopefully not. But I do think that unfortunately it erodes trust, when we rush through things or we don't do things on time. So I don't
You
know.
know that there are malicious people.
I know, but hopefully yes, I know. But
Malicious people they tend to attain powerful positions very easily because they were malicious to get there. So
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, but I know. But in general, I don't think, the entire city council is gonna want to do something
no.
to erode trust,
We
in
have
our
some
city.
great aldermen, and then we have, some that,
Yeah.
I question their underlying motivations. Like, why did you make this decision? What's really going on?
Yeah. It's hard to understand why people do the things they do, sometimes. But like I said, I hopefully am gonna come in with a positive. I'll stay positive for as long as I can, okay?
Well, I think most people go into politics. Well, I'll say most, well, not all. Some people go in with intent to do damage,
Definitely.
destruction for their own gain. But I think many go in, very optimistic and ready to make
Yeah.
powerful, positive changes, and then they come up against those
Yeah.
who are not about positive change for the
No,
whole.
yeah, that's
Only
definitely
about
true.
They're only about a positive change for certain people, not for everybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much the game. That's politics. And so, being
Yeah.
in the position that you're running for, you have access to information that could expose a lot.
Yeah. You know what? And I've definitely my job for the past 6 years has been to get people involved in politics, to get people involved in elections, and to hold their elected officials accountable. You know, Overall, that's my passion, right? Like that's what I do. That's what I've been doing, for the past 6 years, sometimes 12 hours a week, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've, worked in communities all over. I've worked, in North, you could say Chicago, North suburbs, and I've worked all the way down to the South suburbs, and I've, had the opportunity to be in many different communities, and I've had the opportunity to see what happens when there are no people there, or there's no one to hold their government accountable. There's no one to ask for more. And my job has been to empower people and to have them ask for more, because there's always more for people. And I think we should not be living in a city, where we have one of the best universities, where we have some of the most intelligent people, and have people going to bed every night hungry, or have people going to bed every night thinking of how they're going to keep their home and they're going to stay in Evanston after living here for generations, because fees are going up or taxes are going up. So my job would be to inform those people and empower those people to get involved.
Mhm.
um, I think after a while, as clerk, yes, I am there to hold people accountable, make sure that our elected officials are being held accountable. But at the same time, um, I cannot seek to always speak for people. You know, I want people to be empowered, and I want people to come to the table and tell us how we should be working for them. Um, because then we fall back into this, you know, cycle of where I think I'm right all the time. I think what I say is the correct thing all the time. And then I am no longer empowering people, I'm only empowering myself.
Mm.
So I think my job as clerk is to facilitate that, to be a facilitator for our community. And you know, that's my passion. And I don't take that lightly. Um, I always, if you know me, or anyone who knows me knows I try to remain as positive as possible until it's not possible. But you know, I try to come in with an attitude of building partnerships and building bridges. Being a person that learned how to speak a second language, I know that it's important to build bridges. Like, it's important to build bridges all the time. But at the same time, you know, I will be there to advocate for people that live in this community.
Okay. I'm gonna try to get two more questions
Oh
in.
yeah,
Only
go
have
ahead.
for about 10 more minutes. Um, so use of force and misconduct records must be released publicly.
Mhm.
So I want to know, will you make sure that that data will become public?
Yeah, I definitely will be. I am no stranger to being, you know, unfortunately, I am, you know, a brown woman, and I've had, you know, very much many encounters throughout my life that are hard, right? It's hard to talk about, it's hard to think about, and
Well,
I think
like what?
well, you know, when I grew up in a rural community in East Tennessee, and you know, there were situations where, um, for example, my parents were once like stopped by the police, and you know, for absolutely nothing, and you know, it was like near my school, right after coming out of school, and I was made you know, they made us, you know, sit on the sidewalk and while they inspected our car, and for nothing, not even a traffic stop, just inspected our car. You know, and it was embarrassing. It was hard. It was in front of, you know, my school, my classmates. And you know, that and other situations, you know, once we were as a child, I was in a car accident, and instead of the cops, you know, could say taking me to the emergency room like any teen that's in a car accident, they took me to a juvenile detention center. um and you know, i you know, I've been in situations where I understand how hard it is for your rights to be, you know, for you to be taken advantage of because you don't understand your rights, you know, as a child, and my parents as immigrants, you could say. And I, you know, I don't wish that upon anyone. And I do believe that, you know, as a community that cares about those things, you know, information should be released, because I think that as a community, if we want to do better, we should demand better from everyone. You know, everyone who works for, you know, for us, and who, you know, we're taxpayers. You know, it is our responsibility to make sure that we are always doing better. Um, so yeah, that's information that I believe in should always be released.
Okay. Do you support municipal ID, so local ID for undocumented residents?
So we already have, you could say, the temporary driver's license and IDs.
Mhm.
So those already exist. I'm not going to say I don't support it. I do, of course, support it. But you know, we also have to think about, you know, cost and if it's necessary. And I think, you know, survey and see if, you know, it's something that is needed. And if it's needed, of course, I think we should do it. Um, and and not just for undocumented immigrants, but there's also people sometimes that for whatever reason they can't afford to get an ID or don't have the transportations or means to go get an ID. We do have a lot of people who are kind of come to Evanston because they're homeless, get services that for many reasons cannot get an ID. So, also making sure that's accessible to people who are all, not just people who are undocumented, but, people who maybe have a hard time acquiring one.
Mhm. So, Stephanie, what will you do different than what was already done during Devon's term
Yeah.
to bring to the city clerk's office? And um, what's the main, like your first day in the office? You win city clerk. What's the first thing you're going to do as
Yeah.
soon as you get in there?
The first thing I hope to do is to try to reach out to people who could potentially be partners, people who we could be partners with, nonprofit organizations, community leaders, people who are leading in our communities of worship, and invite them to, to to be a liaison for us as well, to make sure that, they're actively telling people that they're welcomed to the clerk's office and hopefully are willing to invite me to their communities, to their events, and so we can start building these partnerships and hopefully getting a few new voices involved. Um, and what I think that has, been done, I think Devon has created good groundwork as far as education and, this push to empower people to make sure we are being accountable to them, that we are being transparent, that we are also educated in knowing what the clerk's office is there to do. So, using that groundwork and expanding it to bring new voices into into our city government, make sure we have other people, getting involved in the different committees. The seats don't necessarily need to stay vacant. Like we have so many talented people, making sure they know that they can get involved through volunteering their time, or also they can, come and speak at city council meetings. And so that's some of the things that I there's a lot of things I want to do, but those are, if you limit it to two, those are the two.
Okay, and I got you for 2 more minutes. One more question. So when you're up there on that dais and the aldermen are not quite following protocol, the rules of how the meeting should be ran. Um, I mean, are you very familiar with the rules? And because I would often see Devon or even Alderman Ann Rainey would have to stop and be like, "Oh no, you
Yeah.
can't do that."
Yeah.
Ann Rainey's been around for quite a while, so she knows
Mm.
the do's and the don'ts. And then
Yeah, she does.
Devon being so young and new to the position, he knew all the rules, what you could do, what you couldn't do.
Yeah, Devon definitely. I've had, many opportunities to speak with him, and then he definitely is someone who is always reading up on the rules, and that's going to be my goal to get to where he's at. I'm not going to say I am, but I definitely do know the rules, and have been watching from, a lot of times from home, and I think really appreciate, I think the help, not just Devon, but former clerks have, said they're willing to, their knowledge, they've been willing to lend it, but
Okay,
yeah,
Stephanie,
definitely.
just for practice, say Fisk puts her hand up and like tells you to shut up.
Okay.
What's your response?
Okay, well, I think we'll get there when we get there. Hopefully she won't do that.
We've seen her do it.
Hopefully she will. Yeah, well, we'll see, right? There's a race going on there. And yeah.
Okay.
I know. Well, thank you. Thank you for attempting to help me practice. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time. It was good getting to know you and talk to you. Um, you know what? Actually, did anyone have a question for Stephanie before I let her go? I want to respect her time. You got to thank you for everything you do for our community.
Yeah.
I know quite a lot of people know you from the community. You're
Yeah.
working in the community.
Yeah, I've done my best to give back. I definitely am thankful of this community. I honestly, like, I would not be where I am today without the help and support of our community. And I understand the importance of always having community, and thankfully, because I've had the, you could say, privilege of being involved and knowing people within our community. I've been able to do as much as I do, and I want to make sure that everyone has those opportunities. um so, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll have you back. We will be doing a city clerk forum, so we look forward
Yeah,
to
I'm
having
looking
you back.
forward to it. I'm looking forward to the dialogue, and thank you so much for your platform and for, opening up that dialogue. It's very important, and I think the continuous education about what the clerk's office is there to do and how it can, open the doors for many people is important.
Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have a bilingual clerk.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Thank you so much,
yeah,
Stephanie.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Okay, this has been Malika with Evanston Live TV. That was Stephanie Mendoza. She is running for city clerk. And you all stay tuned. We'll have her back as the race starts to heat up. It's already heated. It's already heated. They haven't even really got out the gate yet. But we will have her back, and you all stay tuned for more with our candidates for our upcoming Evanston election 2021. Here we come.